you have obviously made the case for the Khamzat fight. I feel like it's probably one of the biggest fights in the division.
Yeah, no, I mean, nobody who wants to see fucking two little go-fuckers go at it. You want to see a real fucking American fight this little Chechnyan fucking whore in American soil. This is a fight that needs to happen.
Yeah, I hate to spoil it for you. I don't think you're going to get on the White House card.
I mean, dude, who knows, dude? You know, I mean, no, dude. Maybe I gotta go hang up at Epstein or some shit. I guarantee, dude. Chimaev would go to a fucking island. That motherfucker's going all day long. That dirty little fucker. Guy's just fucking is a clown, dude. I mean, you want to talk about a clown? You fought once in the middleweight division. You're moving up to fight an easier fight, and that's what he's doing. He's moving up to fight an easier fight. 205 division soft as fuck right now. So he's like, I'm gonna go fight Yuri. It's like it just. You're picking a really easy path. You're not a double champ. You're not even. You've won a belt once. Like, if the UFC grants that request, it'll be a fucking clown show, and I hope they don't.
Does it frustrate you at all, like hearing things like that, like seeing, you know, how long you fought in the middleweight division, and even a guy like Dricus that fought so many times and took on the best guys in the division?
Well, I mean, I hope the UFC tells him to go fuck himself. That's the right thing to do. I think, but again, it's like, who wants to see Yuri? Is Yuri going to be the belt, the next one find the belt? It's bullshit, dude. He doesn't deserve it. He's only fought for the belt once. The UFC should can it.
Strickland versus Chimaev is not going to be a competitive fight. This is going to be decided in the first round. Now, let me tell you why. I'm not suggesting for you that the fight ends in the first round. What I'm telling you is whoever wins that round is going to win all the rest of the rounds the exact same way. It is very difficult for me to imagine Chimaev can't go out and tackle somebody. Why? Well, because every Chimaev fight I've seen, he has gone out and tackled somebody quickly, repeatedly. But it's very hard for me to imagine that he's going to just throw Sean Strickland down. Nobody else has.
The expert here establishes the explosive nature of a potential Chimaev versus Strickland matchup, emphasizing how this could conclude within moments of the opening bell. We're looking at a scenario where there's no gradual feeling out process, just immediate fireworks that determine everything in those crucial first minutes. What makes this particularly intriguing is how the UFC's meticulous matchmaking strategy comes into play when facing such volatile dynamics. The promotion doesn't randomly throw together bouts, especially when one fighter's advantages might completely nullify their opponent's strengths, creating massive implications for marketability and career trajectories. Picture the UFC executives analyzing Chimaev's grappling dominance and wondering if it presents an insurmountable challenge for Strickland, or perhaps viewing it from the opposite angle. Their reluctance to greenlight this fight stems from genuine concerns about creating a lopsided spectacle that could irreparably harm one of their valuable assets in ways that prove difficult to overcome. This expert prediction of such early decisiveness underscores the astronomical stakes involved for both athletes, making it a bout that inevitably becomes subject to intense boardroom discussions and potential restructuring by the promotion's key power brokers.
I have seen Sean in the practice room. Just for example, in practice room stories are very, very relevant. Like, you'll see a different side of a guy in a practice room. When a guy goes into a fight, he's going to go with plan A. And he will never go to plan B, ever, unless plan A doesn't work. You have a guy like Khabib where people go, well, he's a one-dimensional fighter. Well, he was one-dimensional because that dimension always worked. In the practice room, Khabib can punch and he can kick and he can fight off his back. He can do all sorts of things. But you've never seen them because he was so dominant in fighting just for...
The practice room revelations provide absolutely essential context for understanding why a marquee bout like Chimaev versus Strickland might face cancellation discussions. Here's what casual observers often miss completely. What we witness during fight night typically represents a fighter's primary game plan, their most reliable weapon, while the training environment exposes their complete arsenal of hidden capabilities and backup strategies. For the UFC leadership to consider a fight viable, they must believe in genuine competitive equilibrium, a legitimate conviction that both combatants possess realistic victory paths. The expert's implications about Strickland's behind-the-scenes grappling prowess being far more sophisticated than his octagon displays suggest, combined with Chimaev's equally formidable training room dominance, creates this incredibly precarious high-stakes situation that genuinely unsettles matchmakers. The promotion's executives are likely wrestling with the prospect of booking a clash where both fighters excel in contrasting disciplines within their training environments. You've got one devastating wrestling machine facing off against one elite striking specialist, and the critical question haunting decision makers is whether this generates excessive unpredictability or, potentially worse, produces a guaranteed stalemate that fails to deliver the explosive entertainment value that subscribers expect and willingly pay premium prices to witness.
I've never in the practice room seen somebody go throw Sean Strickland down and keep him there. Ever. Not for one single round, not ever. I've seen him taken down. I've seen him start on bottom. I have never seen him taken down and kept there. Adversely, I've never seen Chimaev not take somebody down and keep them there. I mean, do you see where this is interesting? Like, it's a very classic battle. And it's not the classic battle of striker versus grappler, but it is the classic battle of, can Chimaev, whose plan A is to take you down, work? And if it doesn't, can we necessarily count him out?
This declaration perfectly captures the fundamental challenge of a Chimaev versus Strickland encounter. You're witnessing an immovable object colliding with an unstoppable force, except the roles are reversed in a way that initially seems paradoxical until you examine the mechanics closely. Strickland's historically impenetrable takedown defense meeting Chimaev's perfect takedown success rate establishes this winner-takes-all situation where one streak absolutely must end. From the UFC's business perspective, this represents an incredibly marketable storyline that practically writes its own promotional material, the type of narrative that drives pay-per-view sales without requiring extensive marketing investment. However, there's an equally significant downside that keeps promotional executives awake at night worrying about potential consequences. Should either fighter's perceived invincibility in their specialized domain get completely shattered, whether Chimaev fails to secure takedowns or Strickland gets dominated on the ground, it fundamentally alters their future box office appeal and revenue generation potential. This built-in uncertainty combined with the possibility of a legacy-defining result, the kind that permanently changes public perception and competitor respect, might prompt a cautious approach from matchmaking personnel or trigger serious reconsideration regarding timing and circumstances surrounding such a high-risk encounter.
Islam had a difficult time taking Poirier down, as a more recent example. But then Islam showed us how good he was on his feet. He showed that he could really brawl when he needed to. He could put his chin down. He could put punches together. He could put combinations. He could finish with kicks. He could do damage. He could clinch and throw knees. Like, everybody has decided that Chimaev can't do that. But you have no evidence of that. You've just never seen him do that. We don't actually have...
The genetic programming reference reveals something fascinating about Chimaev's fighting instincts. The comparison to Islam Makhachev, who successfully expanded his skill set when elite opponents neutralized his grappling, illuminates the mystery surrounding Chimaev in compelling ways. The expert identifies a crucial evidence gap regarding Chimaev's striking abilities, and notice they're not questioning his punching capability entirely, but rather pointing out we simply haven't witnessed it demonstrated meaningfully in competition, because his wrestling supremacy proves so completely overwhelming that fights never reach that testing ground. This unexplored territory introduces a substantial wildcard that could heavily influence contract negotiations and potentially trigger postponement or cancellation of the entire matchup. Consider the UFC's strategic viewpoint here. If they determine Chimaev needs to validate his stand-up arsenal before facing a defensive specialist like Strickland, someone who will successfully defend takedowns and force a boxing contest, they might legitimately postpone the booking indefinitely. They want to ensure Chimaev develops into a more complete, marketable fighter before placing him in such a potentially career-defining and dangerous situation that could expose critical weaknesses on a massive stage with worldwide attention.
That mask was Sean. Because Sean used to train with him. Sean has felt him. There was a very classic moment. It was Don Fry and Ken Shamrock, and it was back in the Pride days. They're getting ready to fight. So they're at the weigh-in the day before, and they come together. And Don Fry, in his own mind and heart, was worried about the strength, the actual just physical strength of Ken Shamrock. He was worried about it. So Don started something with him at the weigh-in. He wanted...
The training familiarity factor adds a crucial psychological dimension that doesn't appear on any statistical comparison charts. The expert highlights something genuinely significant here regarding Sean Strickland's previous training experiences with Chimaev, having physically felt his power and pressure, potentially dismantling some of that intimidating presence that typically makes opposing fighters hesitate and second-guess themselves. The Don Fry and Ken Shamrock story perfectly demonstrates how experiencing an opponent's physical attributes, even briefly during training sessions, can dramatically impact confidence levels when stepping into actual competition with them. It transforms the unknown threat into something tangible and manageable, like distinguishing between fearing invisible dangers and knowing exactly what challenges await in the darkness ahead. This intimate knowledge that Strickland possesses could fundamentally alter the fight's psychological warfare, completely changing his mental approach and confidence levels. For UFC matchmakers, this introduces another complicated variable to an already complex decision-making process. A bout where one star's mystique has already been partially dissolved through first-hand training exposure might not generate the same universal appeal among casual viewers who remain unaware of this background history, potentially prompting reconsideration of its scheduling if the promotional narrative loses impact, and that star power that drives ticket sales gets diminished before contracts are even finalized.
Was Ken to grab him in some fashion. Don wanted to feel that. One time the night before he got in the ring, Ken took the bait, he grabbed him, and that's where Don's confidence grew. Right there in that moment, every worry that he had about, man, this guy is so strong and this guy is going to be too strong, and he felt him. And he said he was strong, but now I know how strong he is, and I don't have to worry about it. And I only share for you, like, it's a very real thing. It's why so many guys would.
The conclusion of the Don Fry narrative perfectly illustrates the psychological advantage gained from simply experiencing an opponent in training or competitive settings, eliminating all mystery and uncertainty. Fry's transformed confidence, even when facing a formidable and dangerous competitor like Ken Shamrock, demonstrates the incredible power of replacing fear with concrete knowledge and understanding. For Strickland, who has already experienced Chimaev during training sessions, this mental edge means he approaches any potential fight without the typical fear of unknown variables or anxiety about unpredictable outcomes, but instead with solid comprehension of his opponent's capabilities, his strength levels, his fighting pace, his relentless pressure. This leveled playing field, where Chimaev's intimidating presence might not exert its customary psychological dominance that mentally defeats opponents before the opening bell, could produce an intensely competitive and brutal encounter that extends into championship rounds. However, and this aspect is crucial for understanding business decisions, the UFC frequently prefers nurturing undefeated records and intimidating reputations, meticulously constructing these mythical personas that capture public imagination. A matchup that potentially dismantles one of these carefully developed images, particularly in a non-championship bout where there's no title justification for assuming such risks, might be considered too dangerous for the business model, potentially driving conversations about delaying or scrapping the fight until the strategic timing becomes more advantageous.
George St. Pierre did not believe that he could beat Matt Hughes. George goes out there and dominates Matt Hughes, but just I'm not on his level, and found a way. He just found a way to make sure Matt won, and then goes, give me a rematch. Now the mask is off. Now I know. Now I believe in himself. And it was a very one-sided affair, but this is a real thing when you can feel a guy. And I'm just sharing with you, like, whoever wins that first round, I don't know that it's as simple as can Sean stop the takedown. I think that Sean is a better kickboxer. I think that he's a
The GSP and Matt Hughes comparison provides an excellent example of how perceptions can be completely obliterated through actual cage experience, reinforcing this theme of demystification we've been exploring throughout. GSP's transformation from uncertainty and self-doubt to complete dominance following a single encounter with Hughes demonstrates the enormous psychological impact of truly understanding your opponent, experiencing their strength firsthand, and realizing it's not superhuman after all. This directly connects to the Strickland and Chimaev situation in ways that are almost uncanny in their similarities. Strickland's enhanced confidence, strengthened by previous training encounters with Chimaev, suggests he already possesses a comparable mental advantage entering any potential confrontation. The expert then emphasizes Strickland's superior kickboxing credentials, which are genuinely elite-level skills, establishing the ultimate stylistic confrontation between striker and grappler that fans dream about witnessing. For the UFC's matchmaking department, such an eagerly anticipated style versus style clash represents promotional gold, the kind of content that markets itself effortlessly and generates immediate buzz. But here's the complication that changes everything. If the psychological edge is already tilted heavily in one direction, and a clear victory path or defeat scenario is anticipated by industry insiders before the fight materializes, it might spark serious internal debates about competitive balance and overall entertainment value that could disappoint audiences and damage the brand.
On for 25 minutes, out kickbox Israel Adesanya. who is a decorated, pure kickboxer. But we don't actually know. What can Chimaev do on his feet? There was also a stigma going around about Chimaev that he would get tired. That he would get tired and fade. But that stigma wasn't true. What we learned is Chimaev leaves everything out there. He's tired at the end of every fight because he gives everything. And if he's got to give that for 25 minutes or he's got to give that for 15, either way.
Sean Strickland's demonstrated ability to outstrike a striking genius like Israel Adesanya, which he absolutely accomplished during their championship encounter, speaks volumes about his technical prowess and elite-level stand-up abilities, creating a stark contrast with Chimaev's unproven and largely invisible striking capabilities. The expert also addresses the persistent Chimaev fatigue narrative circulating among fans, explaining that it's not traditional tiredness, but rather complete energy expenditure, which actually showcases his relentless aggression and suffocating pressure that never decreases throughout the fight. This creates a fascinating hypothetical scenario that's genuinely intriguing to consider. What unfolds if Chimaev's wrestling gets effectively neutralized, forcing him into a striking battle against a durable, high-output fighter who also empties his energy reserves and refuses to retreat under pressure? The UFC appreciates compelling storylines that develop organically and require minimal promotional effort, but a contest with such elevated potential for one-sided exhaustion or an unexpected upset that completely reshuffles the divisional hierarchy could prove seriously problematic if there's a recognized risk of one athlete burning out or being exposed prematurely in their developmental arc. This consideration can definitely influence internal conversations about potential cancellation or strategic scheduling that protects their financial investment in both competitors while maximizing long-term earning potential.
But Strickland is also known for his pacing. Strickland is also known for his conditioning. I've never seen Strickland wilt. Even on fights that haven't gone Sean's way, it's not because he got tired and gave up, ever. One of these guys is better than the other one, and one of these guys is going to have an ability and a skill set that is going to overwhelm his opponent. And we're going to know who that is. Not at the end of 25 minutes. We're going to know who that is at the end.
The final observation about Strickland's unwavering conditioning and complete refusal to break under any circumstances provides a compelling counter to Chimaev's suffocating pressure and overwhelming fighting style. It describes a competitor who simply won't crumble regardless of how the contest develops or what challenges he encounters inside that cage environment. This inherent durability and mental fortitude, combined with the expert's conviction that one fighter's skill set will completely overwhelm the other and determine the winner before the first round concludes, elevates the bout's incredibly high stakes to an almost unbearable level of intensity. Such an immediate, conclusive result, while undoubtedly thrilling for audiences who crave definitive finishes and clear outcomes, can become a strategic nightmare for UFC executives and matchmaking personnel. They invest substantial resources in developing stars gradually over extended periods, carefully orchestrating their ascent through divisional rankings, and a swift, devastating defeat for either Chimaev or Strickland could severely damage their future promotional value and completely derail those meticulously planned career trajectories they've spent years developing. This potential for instantaneous, definitive resolution, with all its associated risks to both fighters' careers and revenue-generating capacity, represents exactly the type of scenario that could prompt serious discussions about potential cancellation or strategic postponement to protect their talent investments and preserve the long-term value they've cultivated in transforming these athletes into pay-per-view attractions.